ready whenever you want.
We have a quorum with Chairman Rubin and Ms. Zucker present. Is there a motion called to order the 319th meeting of the members of the Housing Trust Fund Corporation? Yes, and do we have a second? Any questions or comments on the minutes? Nope. Minutes are approved. Let's just go right into it. We're going to start with item 9 regarding the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. They asked to go first. Their materials begin on page 93 of the file. So storm
Which
recovery.
page?
Yeah, storm recovery. Please come on up.
That's brilliant.
There we go. Bring your own chair. Look at all these nice people.
Probably have to.
Huh?
No, we will not.
Oh, coming from downtown, you said?
Yes. Go down.
Until I get a guarantee about the
The little bugs.
the little bugs problem. I could escape velocity from there a long time ago. I'm going back. Hi guys. Hey.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
So,
Who are you?
who are you? Do you know all these people?
Ready to start?
Go.
Sure. So this is the team from the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. We're here for our quarterly update to the board about the status of our programs. You should have received in advance a PowerPoint deck. I assume that you guys would have that, but it's okay. I can just touch on 5 points. So Lisa Bova-Hyatt was originally slated to present today, but she's at a meeting, a very important meeting with elected official.
Member of Assembly Lopez.
Assemblymember Lopez, and so really felt that this team could handle it, because she needed to be up there in person with the assembly.
We have the deck in front of us.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. So the first slide is
Perhaps
the.
you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Tyler, Mrs.
So,
Zucker.
For the benefit of those of us in the seats.
sure. So let me introduce the team from the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. My name is Robert Miller. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
I'm Daniel Green. I'm the General Counsel of GOSER. Dan Berkovitz. I'm the Managing Director of the Community Reconstruction Program and an Assistant General Counsel.
Debbie Ahiwat, Managing Director, Housing.
And Emily Thompson, I'm Deputy General Counsel.
Thanks.
Bia, have you gotten your feet under you?
Today's day one.
Day one.
Isn't that awesome?
So that is the first slide is our management team, and what you have is the current version of it, except that it is actually just in the last couple of weeks slightly out of date, and Debbie is the big news there. Unfortunately, our Director of Housing, Arden Sokolow, has left. I think Tuesday was her last day, and so Debbie has stepped in, and she is now our managing director of housing. In this chart, other just notable things. I'm not sure exactly what the status was. Bill Melville, the director of internal audit, may have just started or may have been in transition at the last meeting. He is now full time and has been for a couple months. The Director of Monitoring Compliance, which is candidate is identified in the chart, but we now have received approval to hire him, and we hope that he will start in December. So actually, first thing I'm going to do is turn over the presentation to Thebia, who will give you the update on the homeowner recovery program. Do we need the mic? Or,
I think for recording purposes, you probably do. So yeah, I want you to hand it down.
Hi, good morning. So again, I'm Debbie Ahiwat, and I'll just give you an overview of where we are with the housing program. As you know, the housing recovery program facilitates the repairs of homes, reconstruction, elevation, and mitigation. And we also provide grants to reimburse homeowners for work that they've already performed. So at the end of December, we funded almost $600 million and assisted over 11,000 homeowners. Almost 8,000 of those homeowners were urgent need, and 37 of those homeowners were LMI. In addition to, and that was for the single-family program. In addition to the single-family program, we also have the interim mortgage assistance program, which has provided assistance to 750 homeowners, and we've dispersed $16.6 million. We have 3 multi-family housing programs. The rental program has dispersed almost $20 million to a little over 500 properties, 27% of which are classified as LMI. We also have an affordable housing program, and we have issued awards to 11 affordable housing projects for a total of $68.5 million, and that's 702 LMI units. Most recently,
You have a question?
No questions. Oh, sorry.
no question.
No, I was kidding. Mary, first of all, there's no way I can prevent Mary from asking a question.
So, I mean, this is an impressive record. It's hard to put it into context. So when you look at the 11,000 homeowners, yeah, somebody else has a question. There's your lifeline.
I'm just curious. That's hard.
Time's up, Mary.
Yeah. When you think about the 11,000 homeowners, do you have a sense of, are there other applications that you're processing? What's the universe of people?
Yeah. So for the single-family program, the application is closed. So kind of our full world, we already know who those folks are, and they're in different stages.
11,000.
Yeah, 11,000. It might be. I mean, I think it's about 11,500, and we have closed out about 2,500 applicants. So the remaining of the applicants are in various stages of recovery.
For what it's worth, that universe. So if I'm remembering my last update on this, the sort of 8,000 or something gap between the number of applications that we got from the program and the number of people that we're going to make awards to is normal. People fall out of the program. People didn't mean it. Too much hassle.
Duplicative applications that you get from multiple family members.
The whole
Okay.
9 yards, and it actually I think probably syncs up pretty well with what the city has seen. And the trick for the last few months before I left was to get up to the top so that everybody who deserved an award of some kind got something, and I think you basically have hit that at this point.
400 remaining, right?
Remaining, but that
Yeah.
400, it's not going to go down, is my guess.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of as we
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
One important point is that when Debbie mentioned that the application period is closed, it's been closed since April 2014. So it's been closed for some time.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, at just the last point on the condo co-op program, it was recently relaunched this October. We've made some changes to streamline that program, so we're very excited about that.
And is that to help individual units or buildings that are condo co-op owned?
For both, it depends. It'll depend on the building's bylaws, on the co-op or condominium bylaws. It's dependent on who holds the flood insurance, but it will help associations and hopefully in unit owners.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll, I guess, pass this back over to Bob.
Sure. Okay, so the next slide in your deck is about the buyout and acquisition program. Just to refresh your for your understanding, we have a voluntary buyout for homeowners in certain designated area. That's what we call the buyout program. But we also have what we call an acquisition program, where we acquire substantially damaged homes and return them to the communities through an auction process. For both of these programs, we do provide relocation assistance to displaced tenants who may have been renting in either of these programs. Currently, we've expended $335 million on the buyout and acquisition program. That's a 39% increase since the fourth quarter of 2014. We've completed 345 acquisition transactions and 507 buyout transactions. We've provided the board with statistics about the low moderate income status of the people from whom we are purchasing these homes, but currently we are in discussions with HUD about to the extent that this can be treated that way for HUD national objective purposes. HUD is we have a number of concerns that we have to work through with HUD before we can treat these as meeting the national objective for low and moderate income benefit, because we've basically taken these houses away from these low and moderate income folks, so it's not clear from HUD's point of view that they're actually benefiting. But we're in discussions with them.
When is the next auction?
The next auction is next month.
November
8th.
17th.
Oh, yeah,
That's
next
this
week.
month.
Yeah, next week.
Next week?
Yeah,
Next week,
17th.
sorry.
That's next
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, next week. You have some of the results from the last auction at the bottom of your slide. We accepted bids on 142 properties, almost all of which actually closed in the next couple months. I think that number may have been presented to the board last time, but we've actually closed on all but 5 of those properties.
Is there any preference for land banks or nonprofits in the auctions, or there's just homeowners?
Well, what we did actually this time around is during the auction process, and maybe we'll organize it slightly better next time, there were actually several properties withdrawn from the auction. 8 properties were withdrawn from the auction, and then we are in the process of executing agreements to give those properties to local governments for a variety of purposes, including, we hope, some affordable housing development, but mostly I think it's open space. And I think we've concluded most of those transactions already, but we don't require the local governments to pay, so we've withdrawn them from the auction. The next slide in your deck is an update on the economic development program, which has been focused on a small business grant program. The total awards are now $41 million, which is up 21% just from the last quarter. This program is really moving very quickly. We hope actually to complete it in the near future. It may be one of our first programs to really near completion. I have an update on the applicants awarded assistance number. It's actually 964 applicants awarded assistance, and we believe that the low moderate income status is actually 749 of those 964 can be considered as benefiting low moderate income folks, mostly because of the jobs that are being preserved. They're low and moderate income jobs, and this is actually our program that has the highest percentage of low moderate income benefit. And overall, 6,452 jobs retained so far in this program. So the next slide is New York Rising Community Reconstruction Program. I'm going to pass the mic down to Dan Berkovitz.
Thanks. So just for context, the Community Reconstruction Program is a participatory long-term recovery and resiliency effort with an implementation phase that we're now in, where we're going to implement projects that were proposed through those community reconstruction plans. It was completed in January 2015. The planning phase was in 120 communities that were represented on 61 planning committees with over 600 planning committee members, facilitated by state staff and by planning consultants. The program was designed to implement up to $625 million of projects proposed in the plans, so that was about $3 to $25 million per community that was participating through grants to local governments and nonprofits, and in some cases through direct implementation by state agencies with robust grant management and technical assistance from the state to ensure successful and timely project execution with full compliance. At this point, we've executed over 60 subrecipient agreements with local governments and nonprofit organizations to implement projects that were proposed in plans. We've initiated over 160 projects, and these projects are either in or will soon move into the architectural and engineering phase of project development in the case of capital projects, or directly into full implementation in the case of planning, public service, and other programmatic activities. And we are actively working to select and initiate additional projects to obligate remaining program funds.
This one is, I mean, where this is, it's in a sort of a challenging point in the program life, because a lot of the burden at this point is on our local partners, not us. And as you know, a lot of them are just not staffed up to move at the pace that we would like, so it is what it is.
What's the nature of the project, kinds of projects?
What is the nature?
Yeah.
Sure. It runs the gamut. I would say the majority are small community scale infrastructure projects that contribute to
Like culverts and things like that.
absolutely culvert resizings, stormwater drainage projects, in some cases coastal protection, dunes, wetlands restoration, sort of green infrastructure projects, also critical facilities hardenings, so standby power and floodproofing for important public buildings, and some planning activities around recovery and resiliency preparedness, those sorts of things.
Okay, the next slide in your deck is the FEMA PA match program, currently sized at about $340 million, where the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery is providing the CDBG DR match to FEMA funds for over 2,000 applicants and 12,000 individual projects which are authorized by FEMA. We've reimbursed $150 million to date, and we expect currently that more than 95% of all public assistance FEMA funds will be matched to this program outside of New York City. The couple of the largest projects, Bay Park, is a $101 million project. It's now in, the contract has begun. The notice to proceed has been issued to the contractor. We're awaiting our first reimbursement request from Nassau County. We have committed to reimburse the Long Island Power Authority $127 million, $80 million of which has been paid, and an additional 27.5 is currently in an action plan which is out for public comment. And when that action plan completes, if that action plan completes its process, we expect we would reimburse the 27.5 million additional funds to the Long Island Power Authority. Recently, the Department of Homeland Security has been making payments to local governments, which they describe as catch-up payments. What this means is that in many cases, these local governments have actually funded this money themselves and paid contractors for the local share of work that FEMA, that they did receive, let's say, either 75% for Irene or 90% of the funds for Sandy, but the local government itself was out the cash for the local share, which is ultimately expected to be paid for by GOZA. And we expect in the not too distant future we will be reimbursing the state essentially for these catch-up payments that were fronted by state funds. Once we have done that, we expect that we will have accomplished all but about $50 million worth of the PA match program.
And that'll be when?
You know, it's dangerous to make very firm predictions in this arena because some of the accounting issues get very tricky with both the state and the local governments, but we hope this fiscal year. Oh, are you asking about the 50 million or the catch-up payment?
The catch payments.
Yeah, we hope this fiscal year. The FEMA HMGP program, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. In this program, we are hoping to provide the vast majority of the local match through something called a global match, by which the buyout programs, which I described earlier, we will submit to FEMA, and we hope that FEMA will accept them as a legitimate contribution to the hazard mitigation program, and therefore constitute the state's local match for this $1.3 billion program statewide. It still will require some cash matching program, but we're hopeful that this global matching strategy will save the state a great deal of money and allow most of these projects to proceed on 100% federal share. One of the big projects where we are putting money into, though, is Suffolk Sewers. The project is estimated at $383 million. It will benefit in excess of 10,000 households, and will be funded through a mix of our CDBG funds, we hope FEMA HMGP program funds, and some locally funded contributions.
And will this create a new sewer system or
It
tie
will-
into that big one?
Yes, it's converting what are basically household septic systems and building out the sewer system to bring sewage to central treatment plants to be treated, as opposed to allowing individual septic systems to function in a very large area in Suffolk County. It's not
So
all
on
of
the
Suffolk County.
South Shore, presumably, right?
It's 4 big communities on the South Shore.
And will it tie into that sewage treatment plant that's, I
Ties
don't remember,
into-
it's like in Bay Shore or something?
Ties into Bergen Point. Two districts tie into Bergen Point. One ties into the Patchogue waste treatment facility, and then the fourth will require construction of a new wastewater treatment facility. Ford River.
Actually, yeah, the final chunk of the money, I think, is going to be expected to be provided through the revolving loan fund. Other match programs that the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery is contributing to is the New York State Bridge Scour Program. And we're happy to report that the FEMA continues to approve these applications by the state. And other HMGP applications. The Governor's Office of Storm Recovery has been involved in submitting these applications, in crafting these applications, and working with the Department of Homeland Security to do the paperwork necessary to apply for these funds. One of the more recent projects that's noted on your presentation is that the NYCHA Phase 1 hardening of community centers was recently approved. Obviously, it's a NYCHA project, not a New York State, but we're all, this being a housing agency, we're all happy to hear that's moving forward. We have some standalone infrastructure projects that are not involved with FEMA or other federal funding sources. The largest of which is the Rebuild by Design program, which was HUD's program, where they ran a competition and selected for us 2 large projects. The Living Breakwaters project, $60 million project. That project, the environmental review has begun, and as you may know, environmental review often involves a lot of good engineering and design work that's necessary to advance the project. So by doing the environmental review early, we're not just stopping and doing environmental review, we're really moving the project forward. The Living with the Bay project is a $125 million project, which is actually a little bit more complicated. It's essentially several projects all coordinated, including improvements to the 100-year-old Hempstead Lake Park, improvements to stormwater runoff on the Mill River, and the creation of a greenway, an open space in that area. Another one of our programs is the local government program. Currently, we believe that 87% of these projects are now in pre-construction, and some work will begin in 2016 on this program. What we're calling the Natural Resource Recovery Program, essentially some parks, New York State Parks Department funded projects, have been underway for some time. both Roberto Clemente State Park in the Bronx and Robert Moses State Park in Suffolk County. The Robert Moses work, the beach work is completed, but there's other work ongoing. And Roberto Clemente, the construction project, there was a ribbon cutting recently.
See that activity, yeah, on the train, when you go back and forth to Albany, you can see them working.
And there will be, both of these projects are in phases, so there'll be some future construction starts as well. Finally, in your presentation, we have the Environmental Facilities Corporation, EFC, which is administering a federal EPA loan grant program. And we are providing the match for that. We recently added the Belgrave Water Pollution Control District project in Nassau County to that program. And most of these projects are well into design and beginning construction shortly.
Sandy was what, three years ago, 2 years ago? 3 years ago. So how long you guys think we're gonna be around?
Well, we actually have that limited by statute. The funds that we administer and that pay for all of our activities, the HUD CDBG Disaster Recovery Grant, are required to be expended by September 2019, with HUD being given authority to extend that by waiver, potentially the maximum amount through September 2022. And that September 2022 really is, we expect no further, would require an act of Congress to extend beyond that. So we think this office will certainly be around through September 2019. Depending on how much gets done by that time and whether all the projects may be done. Work will probably continue on many of the projects. I think some of the community reconstruction projects and some of the infrastructure projects have longer timelines just because of the design, engineering, and construction process taking a certain amount of time. So I think we're pretty certain that activity will be happening in that 3-year waiver period. Whether it's constituted as a governor's office of storm recovery at that time or not, we'll see. But certainly the funds will need to flow, and someone will need to administer them, probably right up through September 2022.
What's your percent of completion to that 2019 deadline?
Well, financially, I think we've spent about 1.6 billion of the 4.4 billion. So, you know, it's more than a quarter. No, about a third, I guess. So, and the largest chunk of that money has been spent on the housing, the single-family housing program. But all our programs are progressing. Give you a general update on HUD related to the monitoring visit. HUD, after the last update to the board, HUD came and visited and monitored the governor's office in August. We are currently and they provided a report recently, October 23rd. We're preparing a response to HUD on the report. The monitoring visit had 3 concerns and 1 finding, but what they reviewed, they were focused a little bit. They focused on the non-federal match program, the local government and critical infrastructure program, the community reconstruction program. They also looked at Davis-Bacon compliance and overall management and financial management. The findings and concerns related to record keeping and documentation for policies and procedure manuals, and we've undertaken already, I think, responses. Maybe Dan will touch a little bit on that in his monitoring compliance update. But significantly, in that October 23rd report, they closed all the previous open concerns and findings from the past 4 monitoring visits. So that's actually good, very good for us, and that HUD, while they identified issues but they now believe we have taken the appropriate corrective action.
Is there a formal letter?
Yes, in writing, and we can
So just, I don't want to get into the weeds of this, but just for my own benefit. So like this is going to be gobbledygook for everybody, the cost estimation issue.
Closed.
Because
Stake driven through its heart,
what?
because HUD agrees with us.
We provided them information on receipt review and.
Say no more.
And actually, this just came up in the context of the statewide single audit, because the statewide auditor, KPMG, apparently found that we were using cost estimation to make awards and we're not reviewing receipts. But we presented them with the HUD concern, the HUD finding, and the HUD closure of these concerns. And this is a rare incidents, they removed the finding based on us providing the written evidence from HUD that HUD had specifically approved this. So.
That's like a year and a half worth of headache. That's big. That's excellent. Great.
So I'm going to turn it over now to Dan, who's going to give you an update on monitoring and compliance.
Okay, and I'll try to stick to the high points here. So as Bob mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we have approval to hire our new Director of Monitoring Compliance. We expect him to begin within the next 30 to 60 days. We also, in the last quarter, hired 2 additional compliance officers, one for the CR program and one dedicated to standalone infrastructure and rebuild by design. We also, in the last quarter, moved M&C from operations, where it had been traditionally housed, into the legal division in order to allow better risk tracking and better risk management. We think it's been a successful transition. The other piece that has been really successful and continues to be, as these infrastructure projects and CR projects and affordable housing development projects move into construction, Davis-Bacon labor compliance monitoring has always been an issue. We established a dedicated labor compliance unit that monitors payrolls, wage rate determinations amongst the various projects that we have. It's been a great success, providing a lot of technical assistance and corrective action for Davis-Bacon compliance. We were able to get through the HUD monitoring visit without any findings or concerns regarding Davis-Bacon, which was terrific. That's a very significant piece of the CDBG requirements. We also continue to provide detailed technical assistance to our subrecipients, contractors, and developers. Much of that technical assistance has regarded Elation Systems, which is our system of record for uploading MWBE, Section 3, Davis-Bacon, and also invoicing. So that's continues on an ongoing basis and on an as-needed basis to our vendors and subrecipients. In terms of, Bob mentioned HUD program monitoring, we also, in this quarter, responded to two HUD IG audits of the single-family housing and of the buyout program. We responded to those and we think have addressed it. Now these will move into the HUD program for managerial decisions based upon the recommendations of the HUD IG. And we continue to go through an audit on the small business program currently, as well as the state single audit that Bob mentioned. In terms of our own monitoring, we are obligated under our grant agreement to monitor our subrecipients, whom generally are local governments. We in this quarter have monitored one of our affordable housing projects, Binghamton Gateway, with an on-site monitoring. We also did some monitoring at the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Project concerning procurement, and we also continue to monitor Davis-Bacon at the Roberto Clemente State Parks project. We are now in the second month of our 6-month monitoring compliance work plan. We've focused this time on internal controls, both within the program and also continued focus on external monitoring. And thus far, I think it's been well received and successful. MWBE in Section 3, Fair Housing. Probably the most significant development is that we've established a new unit within GOSER, a division of civil rights and of diversity. We've appointed a chief diversity officer, Janelle Doris, to give oversight and technical assistance on MWBE compliance, Section 3, and fair housing. We currently have 180 MWB prime and subcontractors, including prime contractors Armand, which works mainly in the housing program, McKissick, which works mainly on the buyout and acquisition program, Impact, Morris Duffy, Penda Aiken, and others to help us administer these programs. We also have created a workforce portal, the first of its kind, as I understand, for Section 3 businesses to try to connect our vendors to Section 3 qualified residents to get them employed and working on these storm recovery projects. And $152 million obligated in direct contracting to MWB and Section 3 businesses currently at GOSER. We also, with HCR, attended the 2015 New York State MWBE Forum. GOSER had its own presentation. We also participated in certain panels to again, attract more MWBEs to get them working on our storm recovery projects. And we continue our outreach through our subrecipients and also through our vendors to find opportunities for these businesses. We also had an excellent workforce development training program out in our bioacquisition project, which I should mention, which was administered by our CR and also our environmental director, Tom King, which gave workforce training to show them how to salvage demolition sites, which was great. We did that through a not-for-profit agreement. It was a tremendous success and ongoing program providing real job training as part of storm recovery. So it's been a really good effort. Procurement, we have a lot of vendors. We have 55 active contracts. We have, many of them work on the housing program, but we also have vendors working in various aspects like monitoring compliance. We have 47 active subrecipient agreements, many of which are having dollars added into them as the subrecipients approach design stages of their projects. And we have issued 16 GOSER RFPs for a variety of services, most notably currently for some construction-related services for the housing program, which went out just last month, and we expect to resolve within the next quarter. A legal update. We have various departments in our legal division at GOSER. One of which is investigations. Detecting fraud, waste, and abuse is a critical part of HUD requirements. So we have 118 allegations which we're investigating, and 29 have been referred to law enforcement agencies. In terms of litigation, the most significant update, we actually succeeded in a motion to dismiss a lawsuit brought by a prior vendor. It's a partial motion to dismiss, but it was a major victory. It was an excellent opinion issued out of the Albany Supreme Court dismissing the tort claims asserted against the state, reducing potential exposure in terms of liability with the state, which was a great success for our legal team.
Where does it reduce it to? So what's the?
The original claim was with the tort claims was approximately $53 million. It's now limited strictly to the contractual claims. All claims regarding tortious interference have been soundly dismissed by the judge based on our motion to dismiss. So it really limits the exposure to the contractual claims.
So whatever they claims owed them under the contract. So that's
20 million. Which will continue to litigate in that matter.
They offered to settle or no?
We're looking at options to try to.
I got it.
Sorry. Okay, so contractor vetting, we have established a contractor responsibility team to more vigorously review our vendors and also our subrecipients vendors. So we're implementing that currently, and then recapture. We are obligated to collect overpayments. That's part of CDBG-DR funding. We've made leaps and strides in the past couple months. We've retained 2 vendors, ICF and Dewberry, and a team of Dewberry and Ernst & Young to help build out the overpayment assistance program that we are currently designing. And I guess the last slide here, we'll turn it over to Dan.
Just wanted to give you a quick update on the HUD National Disaster Resilience Competition. So this is sort of the sequel to Rebuild by Design, which was mentioned earlier. HUD is operating a competition that invites previous grantees of HUD disaster recovery funding from the years 2011 to 2013, I believe, to compete for up to $1 billion of funding for additional innovative disaster recovery and resiliency projects. GOSER submitted an application on behalf of New York State. We previously qualified in a first round of the competition to submit a second round application earlier this year.
When?
Well, we advanced, so that's the good news. We actually just submitted a our phase 2 application, which is called Reimagining Resilience, on behalf of the state on October 27th, so just this past month. The application requests a total of $470 million in additional CDBG funds to address unmet recovery needs in housing, infrastructure, and economic revitalization in 10 counties identified as most impacted and distressed target areas. These are Broome, Orange, Greene, Nassau, Rockland, Schoharie, Suffolk, Tioga, Ulster, and Westchester counties, which would facilitate over $800 million in projects and programs if successful. So we obtained commitments of conditional leverage from other agencies and entities in an amount almost equal to the amount that we're seeking, which is something that we're proud of. So we're requesting funding for 6 projects and programs altogether. The proposals for housing focus on creating protections for highly vulnerable, low and moderate income residents of public housing and manufactured home communities. The proposals for increasing resilience of infrastructure include restoring floodplains, right-sizing of bridges, culverts, and critical dams, and improving wastewater management systems. We had several partners, including state agencies and outside entities. They included New York State DEC, DOT, HCR, and Parks, along with the public housing authorities of Hempstead, Freeport, Binghamton, and Long Beach. Also Enterprise Community Partners, Opportunity Long Island, Cornell University's Water Institute, the Nature Conservancy, the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, and Nassau County.
Look.
Thank you.
A lot of work.
The concluding slide is actually an update on the finance management of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. So after your update, we met with HTFC finance staff in August, and they presented us with a proposal to significantly modify our financial relationship with HTFC and have the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery operate in a model that they described as similar to the Small Cities program, with a little bit more independence and doing many more of the functions that they had previously been performing for us at the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery level. So we embarked on a transition. Your slide gives you sort of an update on that. Essentially, we have begun several of the steps. It identifies that we're now receiving invoices directly from vendors. We are now interacting and have taken over management of the HUD DRGR system, which is the financial management system of HUD. The 2 other big things that we needed to take over were the ACH and check pay file creation documents, which are the technical means by which folks are getting paid, and the creation of warrants to be executed by us and HTFC Finance, even in the transition period. So we've mostly completed those things. Your slide shows that the check pay file creation is completed. We've had a few bugs with that actually, so we're still in the middle of that. But otherwise, your slide is pretty accurate about where we are. Again, this has been a very rapid transition, so we're sort of doing the IT development associated with this as we transition the function. So it's sort of an iterative process where we're QAing things in real time as we need to. We're working very closely with the HTFC finance staff. So it is going pretty well, and we hope that we really will have wrapped it up this month, and we'll have relieved HTFC of a fair amount of administrative work, while nevertheless retaining HTFC as a control. HTFC still will be the conduit through which all payments move to the taxation and finance for actual disbursement. They will still be our bookkeeper, essentially keeping the financial records of GOZER alongside the rest of the HTFC financial records, and they still will be a countersignature on all payment instructions on all warrants. That is our update for you.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well done, guys.
Yeah.
Now move to item 2, resolution amending the agreement with Northeast and Bucks Company trading as Mullen and Lonergan Associates. Lorraine from Albany. Floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. This past spring, the board approved a $442,000 for $58 contract with Mullen and Lonigan to complete the state's analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. We knew we had a very aggressive timeline with the kickoff of July 16th and a contract end date of October 31st. It was determined a few weeks ago that would be in our best interest to attempt to amend our contract by extending the date, as well as providing opportunity for M&L to assist the state in responding to comments that will come through our public comment period, as well as provide the executive chamber the appropriate amount of time to review the document as well. So before you is an amendment for an additional compensation not to exceed $11,250. That's approximately 80 hours of additional work to, again, complete the review process for the public comment period.
Give a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Motion's carried. Thank you, Lorraine. Item 3, Mr. Lee, a resolution renewing technical assistance contracts.
Good morning. In May 2012, the Housing Trust Fund Corporation issued an RFP for a variety of technical assistance services to assist HTFC staff, potential not-for-profit applicants, and awardees in developing and managing housing and community revitalization projects. The trust fund received 11 responses to the RFP. Proposals were reviewed and scored by staff, and all bidders were deemed qualified to provide TA services. In September 12th, the members approved the issuance of 11 TA service contracts to the firms you see listed in the memo. The RFP is up to a 5-year term that includes 4 optional 1-year renewals, each subject to board approval. Staff has been satisfied with each vendor's TA service.
Yeah. Never mind.
Suggest in the meantime we move on to the Brett.
Yeah, why don't we move ahead, Brett? Should we go to item 6? Resolution authorizing award under the Homes for Working Families Program for Clinton Plaza Apartments.
Sure, thanks. We have a few projects that were also on the HFA committee that we went into the substantial details, so I'll just give you some overview on these. This project is Clinton Plaza Apartments, a Mitchell-Lama non-ESD project located in Syracuse, and we're asking for a $2 million award of Homes for Working Families. It was
Hi there.
Hello? They've muted us.
Should we hold this line and say, please acknowledge it?
You see, I have
Hello?
Hang on.
Just bear with us.
Our microphone's on.
Hi, can you see us?
so
Yes, hang on.
Okay.
Okay,
I jumped the line.
yeah,
You're not the first.
yes, SIF, got it.
So item 17 was the SIF funds.
Okay, you want to do item 8 now? too?
Right, and then item 8 is for the Theodore Vrem Departments, Westchester County. This is for Homes for Working Families in the amount of $3 million.
So for all of these, motions
Good.
carried.
Well done. Nicely done.
All right, Chris, you want to pick up where you ended?
Yeah, sure. Requesting an extension, 1-year extension for the technical assistance contract. The technical assistance program has really been invaluable to my office and to other offices within the agency in being able to backfill a lot of tasks that were just not appropriately staffed or have adequate staff to do. You know, for example, the companies that we've retained have helped Wanda Graham and her shop in completing affirmative marketing plans. They've assisted us deal with certain issues we've had with HUD's IDIS system. They help us, they've been helping us kind of better implement lead-based paint regulations. We also deploy them to help some of our not-for-profit partners who are having financial issues or other such issues. And they also help us with various presentations, such as the one on the rural downtown revitalization that we did in Delaware County last year. So this has been invaluable to us. So again, before you, we're seeking to extend the one-year term for the 11 firms identified in the memo for 1 year, and I respectfully request your approval to do so.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So
And a
moved.
second?
Second.
Motion carried. Chris, item 4.
Yep.
Bonus awards.
On April 28, 2015, OCR advanced $1.35 million in Access to Home awards pursuant to the 2014 RFP for the Access to Home program. The funding awarded was $1 million, of $350,000 from deobligated program funds. When we go through our review process, we take into consideration previous awards and the progress made by the LPA in distributing funds. And what happened in 2014, we had 4 groups that were really stellar groups, but they still hadn't adequately completed their 2013 accomplishments. So what we're proposing to do now is that we believe that they have sufficiently spent through most of their 2013 funds, and we want to reward these groups with an additional contract amendment to give each group an additional $62,500. The 4 groups are in the back of the memo, and I just want to point out Rebuilding Together is the not-for-profit that Gozer mentioned earlier that's doing the job training on Staten Island. So these are really great groups, and again, since this is above a 10% increase, we do need board approval, which is what we're requesting today. Any questions?
No.
Nope.
We have a motion
Moved.
and a second.
Aye.
Okay, carried. Thank you. Now we go to Heather, item 5, secret documentation.
Good morning, everyone. This morning I have a recommendation for the Street on Hudson, which is a project sponsored by the Community Builders in Troy. It is on the Hudson River and it is an adaptive reuse of a historic building to create 67 residential units. It is I recommend that the board categorize this as a type 1. It is contiguous to other historic buildings and it's also requiring work on the seawall. The project meets both National Park Service and Army Corps of Engineer mitigation standards. Therefore, will have no adverse environmental impacts. And therefore, I'm recommending a negative declaration for that project. This morning I also have Webster Green, which is being sponsored by the Doe Fund. It is new construction of an 8-story building with 82 units for families in the Bronx. And I recommend that the board classify the project as unlisted with a negative declaration.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion carried. And then the remaining items are all informational. I won't read them each out loud given time. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then there's a new item 16, which wasn't in the materials but was handed out earlier. These were all resolutions previously signed by you, and under the bylaws, we remind you of it at this meeting. Any remaining items? Meeting, did I capture everything? We're good? Okay. Motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, a second.
Thank you,
Meeting
everybody.
adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.